Welcome to Trust Talks and Digital Dives, where we delve into the world of trust in the digital age. Trust Talks and Digital Dives is produced by DIAC, a nonprofit organization that fosters secure and privacy-enhancing access to digital services in Canada and globally. Whether you're navigating the complexities of data privacy, pondering the impact of AI on trust, or curious about how technology shapes our relationships, you're in the right place. In this episode of T2D2, I'm honored to host yet another exceptional guest. Today we have Sami Khoury, head of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, or the Cyber Centre for short. Sami serves as the head of the Cyber Centre, where he acts as the primary source of expert advice, guidance, services, and support on cybersecurity for government entities, critical infrastructure owners and operators, as well as the private sector and the Canadian public. Sami embarked on his career at the Communications Security Establishment, CSE, in 1992, where he initially acted as a research engineer specializing in the impact of emerging multimedia communications technologies. Over the years, he's held various operational and leadership roles at CSE. More recently, he served as Assistant Deputy Minister for Enterprise Technologies and Solutions. In this capacity, he was CSE's Chief Information Officer. Sami's contributions have been recognized through various accolades, including the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal and the Apex Award for Excellence in Innovation. And on a personal note, as this podcast has grown, it's been such a privilege to interview Canadian and international luminaries like Sami. We look forward to continuing to learn from him and from the many dedicated individuals who work for and with the Cyber Centre. With that, let's dive in to Digital Trust with Sami. Welcome, Sami. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, Joni, for this opportunity to join you and share with you and with Canadians sort of the latest on cybersecurity.
Wonderful. So as we get started, for our listeners, I think it would be great if you would share with us some of what your role is with the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and what is the mission of the CCCS for Canada?
Great. So the Cyber Centre is part of an organization called the Communications Security Establishment, and I've been at CSE now 32 years. I've progressed starting as an engineer, and now I've moved up and laterally to be the head of the Cyber Centre. So as the head of the Cyber Centre, I lead a team of about 1,000 strong, or maybe 1,100. And our mission essentially progressed from defending the Canadian government to now supporting Canada and Canadian organizations in their cybersecurity journey. So in 2018, the government, through its national cybersecurity strategy, gave us the mandate to then go beyond just government. So we could not have this conversation in 2018 prior to October 1st, but in October 1st, 2018, as a result of the national cybersecurity strategy, now we can support Canadian organizations across Canada in their cybersecurity journey on top of our kind of primary mission to support and defend the Canadian government.
That's fascinating. I wasn't aware of that nuance of that change. And so the ability to speak out and beyond, certainly when I've had the honor of working with and speaking with people from the Cyber Centre, it gives me comfort to know that so many people who are passionate for these topics, and not only passionate, but world-class knowledgeable on the topics, are working together to, protect Canadians from these type of cyber threats that are, unfortunately growing in our ecosystem. So with that, could you share a bit of what you see as some of the emerging threats, cyber threats, for the Canadian ecosystem today?
So at the Cyber Centre, we are very well informed, both from the nature of defending government and what we see across government, but also in our partnership with our colleague on the intelligence side of the house, who see threats from a different perspective. We have been issuing in 2018, 2020, and 2022 the National Cyber Threat Assessment, and we are working on an updated version to release later this year, that essentially captures what is the threat that we see that we feel Canadians should be aware of. So the number one threat that still is valid today is ransomware. We assess ransomware to be the number one threat that Canadian organizations will face. And these are cyber criminals that are purely motivated by money. At the other extreme of threats, we see nation states who these are countries that don't share our values, who have cyber program that they put to their national use. They go after not just the government, but they go after businesses, after public sector, after organization to steal information, intellectual property, and get maybe an information advantage. We are also very concerned with misinformation, disinformation. It's out there. It's not just during election periods. It's now part of our daily vocabulary in a way. So we are concerned with prevalence of that, especially in election periods. And lastly, in terms of emerging tech, the two areas that keep us busy. One is the progression of quantum cryptography, quantum resilient algorithm, quantum computing, but also artificial intelligence. And we cannot have a conversation today without using AI in a sentence. So not just AI brings us great things to enhance our life, but also cyber criminal and others have found a way to use AI and turn it against us in many ways. So those are the kind of the five threats that we are dealing with today, with nuances in some of them.
Fascinating. And I'm coming into this recording today from British Columbia. We just had a massive cyber attack on our major pharmacy drugstore that's out here, and shockingly it closed the doors for a number of days. And so I think really these types of cyber attacks are coming to the forefront of the public, especially when they see it's not only it's computers, but it's not only computers. It means the doors are shutting to the drugstore that they normally go to, so it becomes extra real for people in their daily lives. And that's been it's been fascinating to see, and I know that there's a lot of people working on that issue. You also touched on misinformation and disinformation, and personally I feel that this is one of the most threatening topics for our society, and social media is perfectly fine-tuned to spread that at speed. So how we work as a society to address misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation is such an important foundation of our society. And I've been drawing a lot of your references and your links from the Cyber Center on this work for some presentations that I've been doing on the topic. And lastly, AI. Yes, I mean, from thinking about digital trust and identity verification, everything from deep fakes, shallow fakes, live fakes, voice fakes, really the ability to prove information and authenticity. I think that even the non-technical person in the public is demanding more value for knowing what information is authentic or not. And so, we're grateful for all the work that the Cyber Center does on all of those fronts for Canadians, for our government citizens, and our businesses and our economy.
I think it's important to recognize that these five threats are not independent. Like AI and misinformation and cyber criminals, sometimes you combine them together, or nation state use AI for misinformation or things like that. So we need to be mindful of the fact that there's an intersection between them that tends to amplify the severity of the threat. So
exactly, absolutely. And the last point, right? The intersectionality, and that the ability for an attacker with less skills and less resources to do more damage today with the tools that they have, the impacts of and the risk profile of those attacks is growing as well. And with that intersectionality, that's a fantastic point. Could you give us more information as well, so that listeners can understand? You've shared the role of the Cyber Center. How does the Cyber Center work with different departments across government to protect Canadians from these cyber threats?
Absolutely. So we cannot do our job alone, and it's about the partnership within the federal government, partnership outside of the federal government, and actually our motto is security through collaboration. So that's how we move the yardstick forward. So within the federal government, yes, we provide the operational cybersecurity expertise and day-to-day monitoring of the government networks and government systems. But we have to do it with partners like the Treasury Board, we're SSC. So that's the tripartite within the federal family. Then we work with public safety when it comes to the provincial and territorial space. So that's outside of the federal government. And then we work with the organizations, be it a private sector, public sector, government, to also inform them about the threat. So we try to work with communities. So the financial community, the telecom community, the education, healthcare, and use them to amplify our messages and promote this notion of information sharing, because we have to, we cannot defend everybody, and we have to be able to be in a position where people start to realize that the threat is real and start to share information amongst themselves, but also with us, so that we can connect some dots and be able to amplify or send alerts or watch lists or things like that, so that Canada can become more and more resilient.
Right. To have, signals when something might be going, a known signal of, some bad actor is taking some action. And, I guess it's the CCCS. We could add one more C on collaboration, and
Absolutely.
certainly certainly collaborating is key to any cyber posture. And there is no single angle that can address all of those threats and all of those risks. So yeah, I appreciate that. Well, in the same context or the same tone, could you tell us more about how the Cyber Center also supports businesses, as you mentioned in the beginning, that expanded scope to be one of those supporting tools for businesses? Could you share more about what that looks like?
Absolutely. So the one way for us to support businesses is to issue advisories, to issue alert, to issue cyber flashes, to have businesses be onboarding in our services. And we offer a range of services from threat feeds to weekly, bi-weekly calls with sectors. So we bring sectors together so that they can listen what is the latest threat facing that particular sector. They can subscribe to our mailing list and receive publications, and as required, receive cyber flashes. So that's kind of our way of pushing information out. But what ultimately what we want is, or what we're looking for, is that two-way partnership or collaboration with businesses. So we tell them about what we know, but also they tell us what they see. And just like the slogan goes, see something, say something. We want them to be able to share with us, suspicious activity. Sometimes the smallest activity might look innocuous, but when put in context and sort of enriched with some of the information that we know, can raise some alarm bells here with whom we are going to deal with. So it's important that businesses recognize that we're not a regulator and we're not law enforcement, and we want to build trust with businesses, and we want to be able to find ourselves in a position where they trust us to share information with us, and then we in turn will share information with the broader sector in an anonymized way. So trust me, share information with me, I will anonymize it and I'll share it with the rest, so that this way I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but I'm learning from that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a bit of that, almost like a neighborhood watch when you come together and share, here's what we're seeing. Yeah. Because something even small could be a hint of an attack that's, trying to be planned or
may be coming. You also mentioned you noted around anonymous sharing as well, and quite often I personally see that privacy and security go together, but there may be some that say, well, how do you achieve security and prioritize privacy at the same time? Would you tell us your perspectives and principles, maybe how to have that balance of security and privacy?
Absolutely. So the line between privacy and cybersecurity is being blurred day by day. We see, for example, in the case of ransomware, when they steal information, they steal private information, personal information through cyber means, through hacking into a system, finding a vulnerability, and then copying an entire database. So companies, organizations have an obligation through the Privacy Act, through the provincial, federal privacy bodies to deal or to report those breaches to the privacy commissioner. But also so that's a kind of legislative requirement. But with us, we hope that they share with us the details of maybe how it happened, what system was exploited, what version of the software was it running, so that we can then be able to see if there's a pattern, if there's a campaign targeting hospital, targeting libraries, targeting pharmacies, whatever it might be, and be able to connect the dots and then issue wider warning. So we are good at connecting dots, and I want the team to build a trust with those organizations so that they feel comfortable sharing those details with us. But we are not looking for the personal email. We're not looking for that private information. We really want the technical details that are underneath some of those breaches.
Yeah, and let's be honest too. I always kind of think about this space, and that there are lines between the security controls, the policies, the processes, the technologies, and all of those um, protections, both protection of privacy and protection as security features. There are lines between those pieces of the digital ecosystem. And then on the other side, myself included, there's lots of oversharing on the internet and social networks and this kind of thing as well, which has change the security posture too, where it makes it easier for bad actors to sometimes know the answers to questions that we couldn't even answer, but because they've got access to all this information. So this is where I think as well, it's the work that the Cyber Center does on the education and awareness side is so important too, because back to that collaboration, when people are thinking a little bit more about their data hygiene, where they're sharing information, that's going to be a part of the collaboration too. Would you say so?
Absolutely. We worry about becoming too lax on information, on sort of our personal information. Every website today wants you to divulge everything you know about yourself, pretty much. And we have to. So we've issued a number of publications to help Canadian, sift through, or ask themselves the questions about, do I really have to? Same thing for, on social media, on apps that you install on your phone. Ask yourself the question, like, why does a game need access to my contact list? Or why does a game need access to my calendar and things like that? Sometimes we become a little bit mechanical and saying, yes, check, check, check. I'll give you permission to everything. And then, many of those apps maybe could be nefarious, could have malicious intent to copy all that information you just gave them access to. So be aware of and ask yourself the question, why do I need to share those kind of details to accomplish what I want to accomplish with the app that has nothing to do with those details. So it's about educating. It's about podcasts like this one, where I get an opportunity to put a spotlight on kind of the value of information out there in the dark web, and how do we make sure that we protect ourselves from adding more information out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly a complex landscape for all of us navigating the space and the average users as well. So multifaceted, and so yeah, we're grateful for the education work that you do on that space. So I'd like to dive a little bit more into some of the guidance that the Cyber Center provides. And I know you've got a document, ITSP 30.031, which is around authentication guidance. And so, for our listeners who are more versed in things like authentication credentials, these technical tools, we're going to turn to authentication for a moment. Could you tell us more about the goals of this guidance document, and also the approach that you take from a principal's perspective in how these documents, these guidances, continue to modernize as the threat landscape evolves as well?
You've said the magic word. The threat landscape is constantly evolving. So when we issue a standard, it's good for a period of time. Some standards are foundational standards, so they could have a shelf life of maybe years or maybe more. Other standards, at the pace at which technology is evolving, at the pace at which the threat landscape is evolving, we have to stay on top of it, so that as we update standards, we have to be realistic in terms of what is the threat out there. And the same way that technology is evolving, so do cyber criminals and others. So the standard on today, our identity is our crown jewel. You steal somebody's identity, or you get your hand on somebody's identity, and you could do wonders with it. So how do we make sure that authentication mechanism, that digital identity, is as secure as possible? And we capture those in the standard or in the guidance that we issue. Now, we issue that document, but the reality is that the threat landscape is evolving. We also want to continue to raise the bar on the security posture. So that requires introducing maybe new guardrails, keeping pace with other standards out there. Standards don't live in a vacuum. So if one standard relies on another standard, so if the other standard has evolved, so we have to evolve the ITSP one, or the one we are talking about. The user experience in sort of authenticating has also progressed. I mean, it used to be username, password. Now we have face recognition. Now we have apps, 2FA, MFA. We have a lot of other ways to authenticate into a system, and some of them are from a user experience. We need to be mindful of that. We're migrating into a space of, we've already started to migrate into a space of zero trust models. And what does that mean to an authentication? And how do we get to passwordless, a passwordless world where we don't have to worry about password and things like that? And because we're also seeing some credential-based attacks, we need to continue to up and evolve. How do we defend against those credential-based attacks? So when you put all of these things together, it results into a business case to say we need to update the standard. So that's what we are doing now, and I hope that a new one comes out soon that will have a longevity of at least a few years before, unless we see something new and we need to update it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you called out that these types of guidances and standards, they don't live in vacuums, and we see what's happening in other jurisdictions and in industries, and are kind of working as a sometimes tightly, sometimes loosely connected community of how we address these these evolutions. So is this guidance available that any organization could access it and consider it for their organization?
So all of our guidance is posted on our website, so anybody can access it, depending on the nature of your organization. The website is organized in sort of, not sectorally, but sort of organization type, businesses versus government versus research and those kind of things. But for the draft ones, or for the one that are under review, we would like to solicit your input on them too, so that we recognize that it's not us. While we do have some knowledge on things that we are seeing from a cybersecurity point of view, your members, your group also has real life experience in digital identity, that we would hope to also run it by you and say, what do you think, Joni? Do you think DIAC or others have some input that we could incorporate into the updated ITSP? So it's that two-way engagement so that we don't put out the standard and people say this is not a realistic achievement.
Yeah, that's great. And back to that collaboration word again. And yeah, and we were also talking about different approaches that different jurisdictions are taking,
Yes.
and tracking that. So maybe along those lines, could you share your principles, or from a process perspective and a principle perspective, how do you work with other cyber posture organizations, with other governments, with other jurisdictions around the world? What does that look like?
Absolutely, we need all the partners we could get. So we'll choose our friends carefully, but we need many friends outside of Canada. So of course it starts within Canada: organization, businesses, provincial, territorial government. Like, we will answer anybody's phone call and say, how can we find an opportunity to work? Of course, we don't have the capacity to work with every single organization. So we need to find sometimes opportunities to bring them together. Outside of Canada, starting with our Five Eyes colleagues, the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, this becomes kind of the most trusted friends. But recognizing that, so on the US side, we work a lot with CISA, and the UK with NCSC. We issue joint publication, joint cybersecurity advisories. We find that in amplifying each other's voice, it adds a lot of weight to the message. So it's not just Canada saying, watch out for this threat. It's Canada, it's the US, it's the UK, and others saying, watch out for this. We also go beyond that in terms of partnership with other like-minded country, and also issue some publications in that space. So Secure by Design, Secure by Default was one that CISA led, but has been signed by, I think it's almost 20 or so countries, saying that we support the principles of, we no longer want to see devices shipped with default passwords that are posted on the outside of the box, or default passwords that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need to raise the level of security upstream by manufacturers of these devices. So there was a pledge at RSA this year of over 100 companies pledging to invest in raising the bar of cybersecurity. And then there are other more operational constructs like the Counter Ransomware Initiative. There's over 40 countries, Canada included, that participate in this combating ransomware. We recognize that ransomware inflicts us all, not just Canada, the US, but lots of countries. So how do we bring together those 40 plus countries and talk about the problem, but find a way to do something about it? So it starts at home, but it grows way bigger fairly quickly.
I love the simplicity of of not shipping your boxes with those passwords. You mean I should change my admin it shouldn't be admin? Should not be my admin password?
It should not be admin, and it should not be 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, 5, and you should not paste it under your keyboard. So
Exactly. Okay, well, with that, I think we've shifted into advice. So if you have if I can ask you for a piece of actionable advice for the listeners today, what advice would you like to share with the audience?
So depending on who's listening to that podcast, if you are a Canadian, I would say there's a lot of advice on our Get Cyber Safe website. How to configure, how to secure your phone, how to keep it up to date, how to ensure that you've enabled MFA, how to make sure that you choose different passwords for different websites that you connect to or different apps. If you are a business, we want you to invest in ensuring that you have network segmentation, that, again, your devices are up to date, that you patch when companies issue patches, that you invest in your staff, educating them against some of the sophisticated phishing attacks that we are seeing, that you have a backup strategy, and that you practice the recovery of that backup, and so on. So the two audiences have slightly different advices, but fundamentally it's about how do we make ourselves more secure and continue to raise our resilience from a cybersecurity perspective.
Very helpful advice indeed, Sami. Thanks so much for sharing those perspectives, for educating our audience more on the Cyber Center, what you do, how you work, and your strategies and your principles. Thank you to you and to everyone who works at the Cyber Center, again, for being so passionate and committed to a very complicated space, and to making our digital worlds and crossing over into our physical worlds, making our world a safer place that we can do business in and connect in. And so just thank you for everything that you do as a person, individually, and as an organization. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity to spend that half hour with you and talk about cybersecurity. I feel that we can never talk enough about cybersecurity and our identities and digital trust, because that is going to be the foundation of the future or the future economy. So let's make sure that it is as secure as possible. So I appreciate this excellent opportunity.
We're going to get cyber safe together. Thank you so much, Sami. Have a wonderful day, and we'll speak with you soon. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives. Your support means the world to us. If you found today's conversation insightful, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Help us spread the word by sharing Trust Talks and Digital Dives in your networks. So until next time, keep exploring and keep delving into the world of digital trust.